Hey guys, welcome back to another Tech That Repair video. In today's episode, we're going to be doing a teardown and repair overview of the all-new M3 MacBook Air 13-inch. This is going to be a Starlight color, and it is a model A3113. Kind of weird that we're finally in the threes on the MacBook models, but let's go ahead and get into it. So just as any other MacBook repair would start, we're going to go ahead and flip it over and remove the 4 pentalobe screws along the bottom. And as you can see, the top 2 up near the LCD hinge location here are going to be shorter than the bottom 2 here. Now we're going to go ahead and use a suction cup to remove the bottom case by pulling up on the bottom sides here to undo the clips. And after finally breaking those points free, we're now going to push with our thumb on the top case away from ourselves and pull the bottom case towards ourselves to slide it off the top hooks. And here are the 4 hooks that slide on these 4 screws. And here are the clips, 2 here and 2 here, that go on the respective screw points. Alright, so the very first thing we're going to do is unplug and disconnect the battery here. So we're going to use a T3 screwdriver. And remove this little cover here. And then make sure you use a plastic spudger, nothing metal, or else you could arc something here. And we're just going to go ahead and lift up and disconnect the battery, just like that. The next thing we're going to do is remove the trackpad flex cable here. And this guy is folded. As you can see, the retention bracket runs underneath it. And that's our trackpad disconnected. So a quick look in here as we go ahead and work through it. Of course, this is very, very similar to the M2 and the internal layout. In fact, almost everything looks the exact same, other than, of course, the actual components underneath here. So this is going to be a very similar process. If you worked on an M2, you should be very familiar and comfortable with this whole process here. So we're going to continue by removing this trackpad here. We're going to switch to a T5 screwdriver. The trackpad and the keyboard are going to be probably some of the 2 most common repairs you may see this laptop needing, just from liquid damage, spills of coffee, soda, whatever someone may be drinking nearby. These are usually the 2 most common components that take a hit. The next most common one is going to be the LCD, which we'll get into later. And then later on in this device's life, the battery. So as you saw, this trackpad has 2 screws in either corner and 2 in the center. Again, these are all T5s that you have to remove in order to get the trackpad out. All right, and with that, the trackpad's now free. So we're going to go ahead and peel off our trackpad flex cable as it's glued on in these 2 specific points here. And now we're just going to go ahead and open the unit and feed our trackpad cable through. And we can go ahead and remove our trackpad. So this trackpad looks extremely similar, if not identical, to the M2 trackpad, as well as this trackpad flex cable. The finish on it actually is a little different on the top side here. Maybe they're using a different coating, I'm not too sure. But that seems to be, as far as I can tell, the only difference. Do note that when you do replace this trackpad, these little these little washers here on each of these posts that screw into the top case do need to be on the new trackpad. This is what gives you that tactile click and feel. If you don't install these on the new trackpad on your replacement one, your trackpad won't feel very good. It won't click correctly. Definitely make sure you either have these on hand, get new ones, or don't lose the ones that were on your old one. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do here is remove the rest of these covers for connections to the logic board here. We're going to start with the right hand side one here. This is going to be the cover for the speaker connection on the right side here. And then the center one here is going to be the connection point for both of the Wi-Fi antenna modules, which are built into the speakers on this model, just like the M2. As you can see, both the cables here. This one here is a cover for a connection that bridges to the board, just like on an M2. This is going to be the other speaker side here. And this is going to be the little cover for the daughter board that controls the audio headphone jack, the proximity sensor, the battery daughter board cable, and then I believe the backlighting for the keyboard all runs on the daughter board that's underneath the logic board here. And the left side here is actually going to be the LCD proximity sensor and the headphone jack. So those don't run to the daughter board. Those run to the logic board right here. We're going to go ahead and just peel back our LCD proximity sensor and unplug our microphone headphone jack, the daughter board, our left hand Wi-Fi speaker module, our right hand Wi-Fi speaker module, and then the Wi-Fi antenna cables. Now you'll notice that this second one here is quite long, as it does run from the left hand side here. That also runs underneath the LCD display connections here, as well as the microphone array connection. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and peel off this little black cover here. Underneath it are going to be more T3 screws, so 3 in total for this cover. And again, this is the retention plate for the LCD display connectors as well as the microphone array connector. So microphone array connectors right there, and then our 2 display cables. We're just going to go ahead and unplug those since we're here. Now we can hopefully fish and unplug that speaker array cable out. There we go. Perfect, okay. So now we're gonna grab a T5 screwdriver and remove the 4 screws at the top. Again, these are the retention points for the bottom case that slide on. They also hold on the Wi-Fi speaker antenna modules. And on this side here, you can see there's another little T5 that's going to help hold on the antenna module here. We're going to go ahead and remove the LCD hinge cover on both sides. This is going to be a T3 screw. And these can be kind of difficult to get out. They're really wedged in there. And again, this top process here is what you're going to have to do if you want to replace a display on either an M2 or an M3, just like this model is here. So the 2 silver T5s are going to be the ones we have to remove in order to get the Wi-Fi antenna and speaker modules out. So now we can go ahead and pull those out. And like I said, as you can see, half Wi-Fi antenna and the rest is speaker. And same thing for the right side here. You get your Wi-Fi antenna section and your speaker section. So now we're going to go back to a T3 screwdriver and remove just the front 2 screws here, not the back 2, which are actually going to be pentalobe. This is going to allow us to remove the LCD assembly And now we're going to grab a T8 and undo the 3 on either side, so 6 in total, LCD hinge screws. If at any point in your device's lifespan, if the LCD closes on its own, doesn't stay open, goes all the way open, if there's anything weird with the LCD, these screws came loose and you have to come in here and tighten these, which of course you can do without actually removing everything that we've shown. You would just have to remove the LCD hinge covers here. All right, and one last thing to do, just make sure our LCD proximity sensor is fully removed from our top case and motherboard here. So now we can go ahead and open the unit in order to remove the top case. So as you can see here, this is our brand new display here, and this is our top case assembly. So we can set the LCD aside and we're going to continue working on our top case here. All right, so I'm just going to go simplest thing to remove onward from here on. So we're going to start with our microphone headphone jack here. This is going to be 2 T5 screws to get the 3.5mm aux port out. These aren't very commonly damaged, but if you do have some liquid damage, you could see these fail. Do note that these are color specific. So if you have a starlight, you want to make sure you get a starlight one, a midnight, get a midnight one, space gray, etc. These are colored specifically to each model. If you were to order a starlight one from us and you have a space gray unit, this connector does show, and it will look a little funny because it's going to be a lot lighter than the rest of the unit, versus this is pretty color matched for the same model. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is remove the T5s that secure the logic board in place. I do note that these center 4 T3s you do not have to remove. You probably don't want to remove. These are the 4 that hold the heatsink to the actual SoC or system on chip die for this unit. All right, now we're going to grab a T3 screwdriver, as the rest of the screws that hold in the logic board are going to be T3s. And again, don't remove the 4 center ones. These are going to be the ones that hold the heatsink to your unit. So before we go ahead and pull it out, we are going to unfasten the T5s and T3s on the right hand side here that are going to keep the I/O. So our 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, our Type-C ports, and our MagSafe 3 port. We'll take a quick look in a second here, but I do believe these are going to come off separately. Compared to the M2 15-inch Air, that one, the whole assembly comes out as one. Those ports do not separate. So let's take a look under this cover here. Yes, sir. Just like on the M2 13-inch, if you peel back this cover here, which we're just going to peel it off, you're actually greeted with this retention plate here, which is going to be all T3s. And once you remove this guy, you are free to unplug all of the I/O on this right-hand side here. So we're going to use a plastic spudger just to make sure we don't damage anything. And I'm just going to pull out our Type-C ports. Once again, same thing as our headphone jack. These are colored directly for your unit. So you want to make sure you get ones that are the exact same to avoid any color conflicts here. And the next thing we're going to do is unplug this little cable down here. And there's one more screw, one more T5, one more of the black ones right here that we have to remove to get our charging ports out. And we'll take that guy fully out once we get the logic board out, but it's free. And as you can see, once we took that cover off, there is one more T5 holding the logic board in, which we can now remove. So this is our M3 13-inch MacBook logic board. This looks extremely similar. In fact, this looks identical to the M2 unit, as well as our daughter board here. This actually is missing one thing. So typically on the M2, there'd be a little daughter board flex cable that would run up from the battery on the right side here and plug in somewhere about here. Looks like it is not. Looks like this is going to be the one that controls the battery management unit here. This little cable on the right hand side. So something to note, they did relocate that battery connector to the right hand side. It looks like it plugs in the logic board right here. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and pull out the charging port, the MagSafe 3 charging port here. And once again, as you can see, this guy's colored, not so much on the actual metal housing around it, but just on the inside of the plastic pin liner. That's going to be color matched with the rest of the unit. Not such a big deal if you do get a different colored one than your unit, but of course, if you're looking for a factory OEM replacement, you want to make sure you get the correct color. The next thing we're going to do is work on this daughter board here. So up here you can see the keyboard cable and backlighting cable all tied into one. And then we have the Touch ID flex connector right here, as well as a T5 holding it in. This whole daughter board is actually glued in certain sections. I'll show you how to peel it off in a little bit. But the first thing we're going to do is grab a T5 screwdriver and take that retention screw out. Switch to a T3 to get the Touch ID flex cable unplugged. And this is also glued to the daughter board, so we want to very carefully remove that. Like so. And then we're going to unplug our keyboard here. And we're just going to make sure that we keep our Touch ID flex cable out of the way. But now we're going to come under our daughter board with a pry and start separating it from the top case. And remember, there's a slight amount of glue here. Just want to go slow, be careful. Well, there we are. So you can see the glue patches here. And there's one more here that actually separated. Normally, when you're taking these apart, this won't happen. This is a brand new unit, so this adhesive is extremely fresh. Typically, your backlighting will be safe, but anytime you remove this daughter board or do any keyboard work here, I do recommend replacing this keyboard backlighting. And if you're doing a keyboard replacement, which again, is going to be one of the most common replacements on these units because people unfortunately spill liquid on them. You do want to replace the backlighting anytime you do keyboard work. Now we're going to go ahead and take a T3 screwdriver and get our Touch ID out of the top case. The only reason you have to swap a Touch ID other than liquid damage or just to clean it is if you're doing a logic board swap on a unit, you want to make sure you swap the Touch ID so it keeps its functionality other than a power button. So now we can go ahead and lift the unit up and pull our Touch ID flex cable through. And that's our flex cable removed. Other than the part number, this is going to be the same exact part as an M2. Same pin out and everything, just a slightly different part number. So I'm not too sure if that'd work with an M2. I wouldn't try it, but you never know. So at this point, you have some optional things to remove. You can remove the whole battery, which we're going to go ahead and do in today's video. You also can remove the microphone array if you need to replace it if it's no longer working. This is just adhesives down. Now you will have to go ahead and unglue the keyboard backlighting cable that runs up here. But from that point on, you can then go ahead and just pry off the old microphone array and get a new one down in there. For a keyboard replacement, you will of course have to peel off your keyboard backlighting here, and using a pentalobe screwdriver, a PL1 screwdriver, remove all the screws along the border, as well as the metal rivets on the inside, and then peel the keyboard off and put your new one back in. Of course, then replacing the backlighting. But the battery here is going to be held on with glue strips, which you can see, you can peel down here, and hopefully that'll get most of it off. We'll go ahead and test that out. So to replace the battery, of course, we have to remove the glue strips here. So I recommend using some tweezers just to pull the tab up. And once you get it in your hand, you're just gonna go ahead and pull. Keep it as straight as you can. Don't pull side to side or else the glue strip will probably snap. Like that. That one unfortunately snapped. Hopefully there's not too much left in there. And repeat the same process on the other side. And now we're going to remove the center cover here. There is 2 T5 screws in here that we're going to remove in order to get the battery off. Let's get this cover off so I can actually unscrew them. Correction, they're actually going to be T3 on the M2 or M3. And after removing the glue strips, we're just going to go ahead and take a T5 and remove the 2 screws that hold this base plate down, followed by a T3 for the 2 center screws here next to the other T3s we removed. And our battery should now be ready to come out. Oh, don't forget to peel back the battery daughter board flex cable. And now we can go ahead and remove the battery. And there it is. So you can see just a little bit of the adhesive strips left on the ones that snapped. So if you pull straight across, those won't come off like that. And correction, this actually is the keyboard backlighting cable. Looks like it runs to a little jumper here that then goes to the keyboard. So some slight design differences, definitely on the M3 versus the M2. Not too much different, of course, other than the actual M3 chip and the logic board itself. But that was a total teardown and repair guide and overview of the M3 MacBook Air, model A3113. We're gonna have all these parts and tools you saw in today's video available on our website. You can check out the links below or check us out at techdep.com. We also offer mail-in repair services. We also offer data recovery services. I will also have those linked below, or again, you can check us out at techdep.com. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next episode.